Welcome to our webinar on concussion in ladies Gaelic football. This webinar will educate players and coaches on what a concussion is, why it's important to be able to recognise and manage concussions, how to recognise a possible concussion, and how to manage concussion. Ladies Gaelic football is a deliberate non-contact sport. However, contacts between players or with aspects of the environment still occur. This means that contact injuries such as concussion are inevitable. However, it's important to realise that concussion is treatable. There's a lot we can do to minimise the risks and treat the symptoms of concussion. So what exactly is a concussion? A concussion is a type of mild traumatic brain injury. It can be caused by direct impacts to the brain, such as a hit to the head, or by indirect impacts, such as a fall on another part of the body. Concussion affects how the brain works but doesn't cause physical brain damage, so scans won't show bruising or bleeding of the brain. Concussion symptoms are usually temporary and resolve within 1 month. What is the current concussion situation in ladies Gaelic football? We carried out a nationwide survey of 657 adult players and found that 10% had been diagnosed with a concussion during the previous year while playing ladies Gaelic football. A further 8% thought they sustained a concussion during this time but didn't seek medical care, so they experienced symptoms such as headache or dizziness following an impact or a fall while playing ladies Gaelic football but didn't report it, so were not officially diagnosed. Of the 10% who were diagnosed with concussion, almost a quarter returned to play in the same day, and nearly half did not follow a graded return to play programme. So the results of our survey show that although concussion seems to be a problem in ladies Gaelic football, a lot of the time it's not actually being managed well. So why do you need to know how to recognise and manage a concussion? What are the possible effects of concussion? Well, although most players recover within a month following injury, approximately 10 to 15% of players experience prolonged symptoms. This leads to difficulty returning to sport, academic and work activities. In the initial period following a concussion, there is also an increased risk of either another concussion or musculoskeletal injury. Finally, female players are at an increased risk of long recovery compared to male players. Róisín from the Clare County team suffered from a bad concussion and explained to me how it affected many aspects of her life beyond just sport. So she said, I ended up not being able to go to work anymore after that because I just couldn't do anything at work. I ended up not being able to obviously go watch training because I couldn't watch the ball. I wasn't able to really do anything because I wasn't able to deal with a group of people talking. And even my phone or anything like that was causing issues for my eyes. So basically lying down in a room was kind of the bones of what I could do. So now you need to know how you can recognise a possible concussion. First, it's important to be aware that some more serious injuries, such as spinal injuries or more severe brain injuries, have similar symptoms to a concussion. So if a player has any of these red flag signs, she should go to hospital immediately. These signs are neck pain or tenderness, double vision, weakness or tingling in the arms or legs, severe or increasing headache, seizure or convulsion, loss of consciousness, deteriorating conscious state, vomiting, or being increasingly restless, agitated, or competitive. Symptoms are how a player feels, so they won't necessarily be obvious to other people. Concussion symptoms typically fall into 4 categories: cognitive or mental, physical, emotional, and sleep related. So a player might have symptoms from one or several or all of these categories. Cognitive symptoms include difficulty concentrating, difficulty remembering, fatigue, feeling slowed down, feeling in a fog. Physical symptoms include headache, neck pain, nausea, dizziness, vision problems, sensitivity to light or noise, and not feeling right. Emotional symptoms include irritability, sadness, nervousness or anxiety, and feeling more emotional than usual. Finally, sleep-related symptoms involve drowsiness, difficulty falling asleep, sleeping more than usual, or sleeping less than usual. Signs are how a player might act, so you might notice someone acting differently than usual if they have a concussion. Signs of concussion include poor balance or loss of coordination, a player clutching her head, slurred speech, a vacant facial expression, vomiting, or loss of consciousness. So, if you think a player might have a concussion, how do you manage it? Players with a suspected concussion should stop playing immediately, should seek medical assistance from a doctor, certified athletic therapist, or a physiotherapist. They should take mental and physical rest for 24 to 48 hours. They should minimize time using screens. They should avoid returning to play on the day of injury. They should avoid drinking alcohol. They should avoid using recreational or prescription drugs. They should absolutely not drive. After an initial 1 to 2 days of mental and physical rest, a player can start the graded return to play program, which should be done with guidance from a medical professional. The graded return to play program aims to gradually increase a player's activity in a controlled manner, starting with very light activity and then building up to more sport-specific activity. Players should spend at least 4 days at the light activity, sport-specific activity, and non-contact training stages. If at any point their symptoms are aggravated, they should return to the previous step and go through that again before trying to progress. Players should then be reassessed by a medical professional and receive written clearance before they return to full contact training and match play. It's recommended that this whole process should take at least 14 days. There's a similar program for returning to school. After taking 1 to 2 days of mental rest, players can begin daily activities for short periods of time that don't provoke their symptoms, such as reading or using a screen. They can then progress to doing school activities outside the classroom. When they return to school, they might need some temporary academic adjustments at first, for example, doing half days or not having to do homework for a while. There's no return to work program at the moment, however, the same approach can be taken as with the return to learn program. If you need any more information on either the return to play or the return to learn program, there's more information at the link below here to the Ladies Gaelic Football website. Ava Rutledge from the Dublin team sustained a bad concussion and had ongoing problems with headaches for months afterwards. So she said that one thing that really helped her in her recovery process was having coaches and managers who understood concussion, and she thinks it's really important therefore for coaches to be aware of concussion. So see here, she said, the issue I found with concussion was that it wasn't a physical thing that people could see. I was very fortunate with all the coaches and managers that I had that they understood that, but I could see how sometimes coaches could forget that and say, oh, she actually has a concussion that's only a few days old. If that was someone who had just torn their hamstring a few days ago, you wouldn't expect them to play a match the next day. Players who do not recover within 1 month may require further rehabilitation. Usually this involves directly treating the symptoms a player is experiencing. There are some examples on screen for the different types of symptoms, and I'll go through several examples now in more detail. Ava experienced persistent headaches following a concussion. So she attempted to return to play a few times, but each time she tried to get back training properly, the headaches kept returning. So in the end, she ended up receiving a multidisciplinary treatment for headaches. This included migraine medication, medicinal Botox into her neck muscles, and a strengthening and stretching program for her neck muscles. So she said, probably about 2 months or maybe 6 or 7 weeks in, I gradually got back training again. Róisín also experienced prolonged concussion symptoms, and she attended a vestibular therapist for part of her rehab. So vestibular therapy treats symptoms such as dizziness, poor balance, and visual problems. It involves sport-specific exercise to rebuild coordination and balance skills. So one exercise that Laurie described was she had to jump around and catch a ball, throw it back to the therapist, and jump around again. She said, initially I used to leave there crying every day because it was just so hard. I was working in slow motion. It was very challenging mentally. And I started to see little improvements, and it was very, very slow now, but they started to come, and then eventually this massive jump came. So she found vestibular therapy very effective. So the main take-home messages from this webinar that concussions happen in ladies Gaelic football. However, they are treatable. Players should know how to recognise the signs and symptoms of a concussion. A player with a possible concussion should stop playing immediately, should seek immediate medical attention from a doctor, a certified athletic therapist or a physiotherapist, should take mental and physical rest for 24 to 48 hours, and should follow a graded return to play program with guidance from a medical professional.